In the year 2033, we will celebrate 2,000 years since the death and resurrection of Jesus. And we might want to ask ourselves, what difference does the resurrection make so many centuries later? It's not a cynical question, it's actually a very good one. We could answer it by taking a theological approach. We could point to heaven. Christ's death opened the gates of paradise, closed by Adam and Eve. And Jesus atones for us, which we could not do for ourselves. Or we could look at it from a more historical perspective. Historians often point to the fact that it was Christianity and the God of the Bible that shaped and formed Western civilization, gave us the idea of the dignity of all human life. It helped us over time to eradicate things like slavery, oppression, and to raise women up. That constant drip, drip, drip of Christianity influenced ideas, institutions, and it helped create democracies, republics, and benign monarchies. All with the idea that since Christ freed us from sin, we were made or remade to live in freedom. Now, all that is very good, albeit a little bit cerebral. I often meet people when I tell them I'm a pastor of a Catholic church. Many of them will say, I went to Catholic school. I was even part of the teen program, the CYO. And they usually say that with a smile, and you could sense the nostalgia in their voice. But then they kind of drop off and leave it at that. When I press them, I get a response like, I don't really go anymore, but I'm not the worst person you'll ever meet either. They kind of remind me of the two disciples on the road to Emmaus. We're told they had downcast eyes. Life didn't turn out the way they had hoped. Life had thrown at them many curveballs. Or even more like Peter. Peter was the ready, shoot, aim kind of guy. He was enthusiastic to follow Christ. He said, "You are the Messiah, God's Son." When Jesus predicted his death, Peter said, "God forbid that happen to you. I will defend you with my life." But then came that unbelievable denial, that betrayal. "I do not know the man." And after the resurrection, Jesus tells the women, "Go and tell my brothers and Peter." And Jesus knew Peter would have by now considered himself no longer welcome in their company, the persona non gratis. You could almost taste the hurt in that statement. Go tell my brothers and Peter. And then we see Peter with a few of the others. I'm going fishing. That's what he did, and he did it well. Kind of reminded me of Michael Jordan. Years ago, he held a press conference after he had tried to become a professional baseball player. And he said, "I'm going to play basketball." Well, of course, Jordan knew how to play basketball, baseball not so much. Peter knew he was a fisherman, but a fisher of men, not so much. And that happens to lots of people. We start out enthusiastic, yet we look back, we took mission trips in high school and they were great, really made us want to make a difference. But then life happens, the hurts, the pains that dampen our enthusiasm come. And they're quick to say, I'm not the worst person that you'll ever meet, but I'll just stand over here. No longer part of anything bigger than themselves or outside themselves. And so a lot of us can do what Peter did. He just went to work. He just got busy. And all of us at different times get really busy. That way we too often wall off our bad choices that we made in the past or the tragic events that we suffered. We just pinball between business and distraction. We sort of dive into something that we feel we can win at, something we can even succeed at. So all those low feelings of self-worth, all those voices of condemnation in our heads that we've been hearing since childhood get silenced. Peter didn't know what to do with what he had done, so he just goes back to fishing. He turns off the voice of God that wants to point his life in a new direction, those 3 years he spent with Christ. And so Peter says, I'm going fishing. The others say, well, we'll go with you. Peter was a leader, as many of us are. And we know we don't really sin alone. We gather partners in crime with us. Our words have power to influence. So into the boat they go and they catch nothing. And I think that was God's doing. God is really good with messing with his children's heads, really. But that's because God really finally won't let us go. Why would he let his people made in his image and likeness get far away from him? So he prepares to pull them back. All the time that Jesus spent with these men, he wasn't about to abandon them at this point. And the good news for us is that Jesus doesn't operate on spite and revenge. So they caught nothing all night, but give them credit for trying. But nothing. You could almost sense the frustration. In the daybreak, Jesus is standing on the shore. They don't recognize him. Why not? They had spent 3 years with him. Maybe they had lost their sense of him, or they had just become cynical and bitter after the crucifixion. Or there's Mary weeping. The stone rolled back, no body. And Jesus appears and says to her, why are you weeping? Well, he knows why. Who are you looking for? Well, he knows who she's looking for. She supposes he's the gardener. Then Jesus says, Mary. And she screams, you could hear, Jesus, you scared the heck out of me. Or the two on the road to Emmaus. What were you discussing? And they say, are you the only person who doesn't know? Jesus says, no what? Then they start telling him all about his own death and burial. He says, okay, well, see you later. They said, no, come have dinner. And Jesus waits to the prayer, and then he says, surprise, it's me. And he vanishes. And those two run all the way back to Jerusalem. They get to the upper room, excitedly telling the others, we saw Jesus. We walked with him for 7 miles, but we didn't know it was him. And then Jesus appears in the room, even though the doors were locked. He, again, scares the heck out of them with his peace be with you. And then he says something really strange. Have you got any fish? I mean, who would make that up? I'm back from the dead. Is that salmon over there on the grill, or can I have some? And then we go back to the beach. They roll up, and Jesus says to them, boys, you didn't get any fish, did you? They say, no. In other words, the way that you are living your life isn't working out anymore, is it? And at this point, Peter is really frustrated. So this strange figure says, why don't you cast your net on the other side? You can imagine Peter saying to his brothers in the boat, who is this guy telling me how to fish? If the darn fish weren't on the left side of the boat, well, they're not going to be on the right side. But they go, and they do it, and they catch so many fish they can't handle it. And Peter realizes right away, Jesus has stepped into my boat. And he begs, leave me, Lord, I am a sinful man. And Jesus says, no, Peter, let me give you my new life. Will you accept the life I want to give you and the future I have for you? That same power that restored Peter is available to all of us as well. Now, we might busy ourselves to distraction, but sooner or later it won't work. We might look back to the past with happy nostalgia. Like Peter, we can say, no, not me, I am a sinner. I can't be that person I once hoped I would be. Jesus reaches out to Peter not to judge him or to condemn him for his past failures. He reaches out to restore his relationship with him. A lot of us can, at different times, feel we're far away from God, like Peter, not knowing the way back, fearing the worst. But Jesus doesn't offer Peter condemnation, but a new relationship. He invites him to come in, eat breakfast, start over. It's a new day, a meal with old friends. And so here's the meal, here's the bread that Jesus prepares. It's here. We eat with Jesus. It's here we reestablish our relationship with him. And whether that relationship went sideways a week ago or a month ago or years and years ago, it's here in this meal that we share the power of the resurrection, even still 2,000 years later.